Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson. Today we're listening to Killer Cases, and this is the Sex Therapist. Somebody just attacked my roommate. We heard screaming. Please get a cop here. And this is who's screaming inside? Amy Harwood. They're able to see Amy Harwood's body laying on the concrete right below her balcony. Do you know if there's anybody else inside the house? No, I don't. Anyone else inside? This is LAPD. Come out with your hands up. Okay, they're going to take her to Cedars. Worked on her at the hospital and pronounced her dead there.
Hi, this is Dr. Amy Hart. Her life's purpose was to help people.
What does it mean to be a sex therapist?
So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
She had a lot of friends that were very, very shaken and upset, saddened by this, including Drew Carey.
I'd like to introduce you to my brand new lovely fiance, Amy.
Even though we broke up the engagement, I was still so in love with her and she loved me back. A beautiful person who didn't deserve to die like she did.
This is what he's going to tell you.
And I grabbed the gun. That's not the first place to put a body. No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, and find the defendant. I am a burlesque dancer and producer here in Los Angeles. My show is called Beauty of Burlesque.
It was Valentine's Day, and in the audience that night was a good friend of the burlesque dancer, Amy Harwood.
We called it a Galentine's Day for them. It was her and her two best friends. I put her front and center so that they could have a great view of the show. It was special having her there. They were having a blast. They were taking pictures and laughing and celebrating. We were all having such a great time.
Sometime after midnight, Amy Harwood headed home to the place in Hollywood Hills she shared with a roommate.
She does not know what's waiting for her back at home.
Yes, somebody just attacked my roommate. We're at 2886 Down Street. I don't know. I was downstairs. I heard screaming. Please get a cop here.
Okay, and this is who's screaming inside?
Can't get sick right now. Amy Harwood.
Who is she to you, sir?
She's my roommate.
Okay. And she's screaming for help?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see anything?
No.
Okay, so
I heard her screaming and I heard her being.
All right, so I'm going to send out that somebody's screaming, okay? Since you didn't see anything. You don't know if she's being attacked or you're not sure.
Yes, I know she's being attacked. I heard her got thrown to the ground.
Hollywood Inn, 6848, 6848, screaming woman, 2086 Mound Street, 2086 Mound Street, code 3 incident 2479626.
Should be coming up. This is it. And then Mound is going to be on the first right.
All right, and your name?
Michael Herman.
All right, and where are you going to be? So you can throw it.
I'm right up front.
2086. 2086. I think it's going to be up here. Yeah. Hey, sir. I can help you.
My roommate was attacked. I know it. I heard it. She's screaming. She was thrown to the ground. I couldn't find my phone. I couldn't find anything.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so you have access to here?
No.
Is there anybody else inside the house?
My roommate.
Just your roommate by yourself?
Yes. You didn't check on her? Dude, I heard screaming. I don't know if that guy had a gun or a knife. I came running I couldn't find my phone.
Michael Herman was in a panic. He's kind of erratic in his demeanor. He has blood on his shirt. He doesn't have his keys. He doesn't have his cell phone.
So is there somebody else inside?
So I think there's.
Okay, sir, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Calm down. Calm down. Other than your roommate, is there anybody else inside the house?
I don't know. So you didn't see anyone. You just heard. I just heard her screaming. I sounded like she got thrown to the ground. I've been through those windows. Nobody's answering. Nothing.
They don't know if Michael Herman is a victim, a witness, or a suspect. and then they also have to try to get into the property, which is locked at this point.
So where's your key at?
Inside, downstairs, the back door's open. Here, come on, here, come on.
You get.
Once the police officers jump over the wrought iron fence, they, have guided the Michael Herman to the backyard.
1615 advised the responding units that we had to hop the fence. We're going to be at the rear of the location. Sir, come here. Relax. Take a seat.
Oh my God.
What was going on tonight?
I've been asleep all night.
They were able to see Amy Harwood's body laying on the concrete right below her balcony, and she appears to be unconscious. She's going through seizures.
Hey, we need to. Well, she's having a seizure. Oh, Jesus.
She's in a situation where they should not move her because it appears that she may have suffered neck injuries.
Stay here. Listen to me. You need to relax. Okay, you're escalating the situation and you're making it worse for everybody. You need to calm down.
They don't know if she did that to herself. They don't know if Michael Herman did it. They don't know if another suspect did it. They actually don't even know whether the suspect's still inside the house.
Do you know if there's anybody else inside the house?
I don't. Oh my God.
So their next step is to secure the location and go into the house and check to see if the suspect is still there.
Anyone else inside this LAPD, come out with your hands up. Hey, somebody pat him down, please. He might be Anyone else inside this LAPD, come out with your hands up. Podcast, you sure? Alright, so you guys can move up in unison. Yeah. On you guys. Just hold it. They're gonna move up in unison. You're good, Pascal. Whenever you guys are ready, go ahead. Go, Pascal. I got an open room. There's a balcony to the top. We got couches. Looks like a kitchen to the right. Okay, so I'm gonna turn right. Parker, you come with me.
As we went through her house, everything was very clean, spotless, except one thing, which was her bed. The bed sheets and the blanket were kind of thrown back.
It's sticky. Beads. This is urine.
Urine? There was a pool of urine, which is indicative of her being probably strangled in that location and losing control of herself.
On the balcony outside her bedroom was a syringe that was on the ground of the balcony that was loaded with a yellow brown substance.
Law enforcement doesn't really know what to make of it when they first encounter it. They think it's drugs of some sort, heroin, maybe methamphetamine.
So there's a loaded syringe on this right here. A loaded syringe. So, sir, do you know her history of drug use?
Yeah, she doesn't drink. She doesn't even drink.
She doesn't drink.
She doesn't even drink. She's sober.
So nobody in this house is doing drugs.
I smoke pot and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean that stuff?
Well, I just smoke pot.
That's it.
Rooms every now and then.
Okay. So she's sober completely.
She's sober completely.
How sure of that are you?
I'm positive. I'm absolutely sure of that.
What do you think? I don't know, dude. Something's off. Because dude, that rig is loaded completely.
Yes, hasn't been used.
It hasn't been used. Hey, can I see your hands?
That's what I hooked it up with.
Oh, okay, got it.
He had scratched himself. The officers were a little suspicious of that. If his story, is true, or did he get that during an altercation?
What about this one here? Can you pull your sleeve back on this one? Right here? Oh no, on this one right here. This one. Can you flip it for me? So do me a favor, look up. If you pull your shirt down a little bit, sure. Really shady. This whole thing's very weird. How did you see that? How it's wrapped around there? It's weird.
It's about 20 or so feet from that balcony, and you would land on concrete. Amy Hardwick suffered some serious injuries after being thrown over the balcony, including laceration of the liver, brain damage.
You know, it's my sincere hope that by the time she was thrown off that balcony, that she was in fact unconscious.
Very weak, almost non-existent pulse. Okay, they're gonna take her to Cedars. I got an officer riding with her just in case she does come to and have anything to say.
She was still barely alive and was transported to the hospital. Worked on her at the hospital and pronounced her dead there.
Breaking news, horror in the Hollywood Hills.
The shocking death over the weekend of Amy Hardwick.
Killed at her Hollywood Hills home.
Hi, this is Dr. Amy Hardwick.
Amy was well known across Los Angeles for her work as a sex therapist.
What does it mean to be a sex therapist?
So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and after that I went to school and got an additional degree in sexuality.
Once a go-go dancer herself, Amy had earned a PhD and focused on helping women in the adult entertainment business.
Hi, this is Dr. Amy Hardwick. I'm going to be going over what anxiety is, how it presents differently, how this may affect sex workers or people that work in the adult industry. Happy birthday to you. Her support really was the glue for so much of our community. Her life's purpose was to help people. And I thought, how is this possible? I was devastated, to say the least.
Amy Hardwick was my best friend. Anyone she met was instantly captivated by both her charm, her beauty, and just her kind of intense way of talking to people.
How anxiety can impact somebody who is a sex worker or specific.
She had a lot of friends that were very, very shaken and upset, saddened by this, including Drew Carey.
For more than a year, Amy had been engaged to marry Drew Carey, who brought her on his game show program on Valentine's Day 2018, 2 years to the day before she was killed.
I'd like to introduce you to my brand new lovely fiance, Amy.
Even though we broke up the engagement, I was still so in love with her and she loved me back.
Carey gave an emotional tribute to Amy on his weekly music podcast.
I could never hear these songs again without thinking of her. So, this next set is for Amy Hardwick, a beautiful person who didn't deserve to die like she did. And I loved her very much.
Homicide detectives had worked through the night.
We had this witness, Michael Herman. We had him transported to Hollywood Station. We were still trying to figure out what we had. We didn't know for sure. Can you remember? Do you still hear screaming?
I still heard screaming when I was
still hearing screaming. Yeah, and we were at the house.
Because when I was yelling, because when I was leaving, I yelled up there, "Hey, mother!" really loud because I wanted him to think I was going upstairs, so maybe he'd like stop and run.
That would know that he's not in the house alone. Two of them.
Right. And I didn't know it was like, I didn't know it was multiple people. I just didn't know. And I just hope that would that they would make the person flee.
Right. We still have people at the house, at the crime scene, and we start pulling video from a neighbor's house. They have like a Ring camera system.
One video showed Michael Herman trying to wake up neighbors, as he said he did, to get help.
It becomes apparent that, Michael Herman was merely a witness to this incident.
Now, this is kind of strange, but can you yell? What did it sound like to you? You're like, okay. Just a panic yell. Yeah. She didn't say, stop, don't. She didn't yell a name, nothing.
But other cameras gave a glimpse of someone else who was a likely suspect.
And we can see this male hopping fences and running through the backyards.
He's wearing gloves. He's wearing a jacket. He then takes his gloved hand and covers each camera for about 10 seconds to stop the emotion activation. I mean, I didn't even know that you could do that, but he's someone that did.
The timestamp shows 8:53 p.m., about 4 hours before Amy was attacked.
And it also shows him fleeing right around the time that Amy was thrown from the balconies.
You know, we still had all the crime scene work to process and get through. What was the point of entry into her house? There was some broken glass and some French doors where we were able to recover some blood. And so we'd had this story and this video, and we could see that the house was broken into.
Detectives were still trying to figure out what to make of that syringe found on Amy's balcony.
After a lot of testing, and we learned that the syringe was loaded with nicotine, almost pure nicotine, which was a very deadly poison. And I think he was going to inject her with that syringe of nicotine and kill her. I think what happened is she walks into her bedroom, and I think she got into that room, got to about the foot of her bed, and realized, hey, there's somebody in the bed. I think she throws her phone at him. I believe she turns and runs, trying to escape, and he jumps out of the bed, and he's right behind her. One of the things she was wearing was a black leather jacket and a couple of necklaces that had beads. They may have even been a rosary that she was wearing. We find the remains of these necklaces and these beads that are scattered all over the place. One of the arms of the jacket is inside out. So I think he grabs her. The struggle begins. At that point is where he begins choking her until she's unconscious. I think he picks her up, goes to her bedroom to the French doors, opens the French doors, and then just drops her off over the end of the balcony.
They asked me just a lot about who might do something like this, and so I told them right away that I thought it was Gareth.
Here it is, one more time for Gareth, everybody. Come on.
Hello, everybody.
The XBiz Awards, as we learned, are adult entertainment awards. It's like a gala event. They have a red carpet.
Because of her work in the adult film world, Amy Harwick had been invited to attend the XBiz Awards and walk the red carpet.
The red carpet was at the end of January, and she was killed in February. We have pictures of her on the red carpet, and she was really looking forward to this red carpet. You know, she liked to dress up, and she liked to be photographed, and so it was a big thing for her.
Until she spotted this man.
Gareth Pursehouse was at this red carpet event as a photographer, as an ex-boyfriend and a stalker from the past.
She always thought he was somewhere, but she, up until January of 2020, had not seen him since 2012.
She notices him. She tries to ignore him or not pay any attention to him.
He saw her and then kind of like had a meltdown, started yelling at her.
Gareth tells her, you ruined my life. I haven't been able to move on.
He started hyperventilating, started getting angry, and he also was on the floor crying. And she tried to appease him at that point by talking to him.
She was trying to be cool, professional, and just tried to explain to him, that hey, we both have to move on with our lives.
A few hours after her interaction with Gareth Pursehouse, she wrote an email to herself documenting what had occurred with Gareth Pursehouse.
She was extremely worried about him, was afraid for her safety. She said, if something happens to me, it's him. If I disappear or something happens, it's Gareth.
The very next day, he contacts Amy by phone, where he's kind of crying, telling her, I need to talk to you.
I have so much I need to say. Please give me a chance to just say it. Can I come into that, please?
He texts her again and again and again.
And then finally, she told him, hey, this is over, this is done, I'm not doing this anymore, and actually blocked his phone number, so he couldn't reach out to her anymore. And I think that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that was the triggering event. We do some quick work and we get a photo of Gareth Pursehouse, and after observing the video, we're able to say, hey, this is the one and the same guy.
They're able to definitively identify who that is on video.
And it also made sense, given what her friends were telling them, that Gareth Pursehouse had caused fear, and Amy feared him.
When they first broke up 8 years earlier, Amy had actually gone to court to get a restraining order against Gareth.
He had been extremely abusive with her. He beat her up, pushed her out of a car on the freeway, and a bunch of things like that.
You get a restraining order, yeah, you want to lay everything out and you want to have a good paper trail. But the bottom line, a piece of paper is not going to save you if the person is intent on doing evil.
I imagine him assaulting her, yes. But murdering her, no.
If this is a guy who, just wants to talk to Amy, why are you gaining entry into her home that way? You likely had to research the area. How do you know that you could access her home through her neighbor's yard? The way he exited the house, he had to run by Amy's body that was laying on the ground. And, he didn't stop. He didn't go look for someone for help. He just ran right by her body. Yeah, someone he allegedly cares and loves. All those actions and all those things I just described goes to show, not only his intent, but his premeditation and deliberation in killing Amy.
By 5 in the afternoon that day, just 16 hours after police were first called, the LAPD had tracked down Gareth Pursehouse and charged him with the murder of Amy Harwick.
He's photographed and he's booked and placed into custody. It's apparent that he received some cuts from breaking into Amy's home, as well as suffered injuries from a struggle that took place between himself and Amy. He has scratches around his arms area, as well as his legs.
Awaiting trial in the Los Angeles County Jail, Pursehouse was focused on using his newfound notoriety to make some money, asking 2 of his friends to find a publisher for the jokes he used in his fledgling career as a stand-up comic.
Yeah, turn those into a book. Try to find a publisher that'll give you money ahead of time for that. Like right now, you know what I mean? Just based on my name because of the media. Like that could be $1 million. I don't know how it works. But I do have a joke for you. What's the most feminine candy bar? Hershey's.
Yeah, you got your sense of humor. You're making the best of it.
Yeah. Well, and also people are posting like crazy hate. There's like, why bother?
So you say you're not gay now?
Correct.
Ever? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen what's coming at me, and it's not good. I'm not getting out. Super fun.
We're going to Los Angeles now for the first day of the trial of Gareth Pursehouse, charged in the murder of his former girlfriend Amy Harwick, well known in Hollywood as a sex therapist and one-time fiancé of Drew Carey.
Her family was there every single day of trial.
I didn't want him ever feeling comfortable enough to look over his shoulder and not see somebody there for her.
So you prepared to go forward, Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mayor.
Morning, Mr. Amy Harwick was trained. She wanted to live. She fought to it. The evidence in this case will show Dr. Amy Harwick was murdered by defendant Gareth Pursehouse
because he was obsessed with her. She rejected his advances. Not only that, she cut off all contact. And to punish her for that, he broke into her house on Valentine's Day. He broke in there with a syringe loaded with a lethal dose of nicotine. She has a home at 2086 Mountain Street in the Hollywood Hills. This is a 3D image of what the home looks like. The balcony will be on the third level, in her bedroom. Evidence is going to show the defendant panicked at that moment. Took Amy Harwick's debilitated body over to her bedroom balcony, lifted her up over the balcony, and dropped her to her death.
And prosecutor Victor Avila made extensive use of the neighborhood ring cameras.
We'll show the defendant. The defendant will be wearing gloves. Here's a better look at that particular ring video.
And it shows on the ring cameras that he arrives about 4 hours prior to her arriving home and just waits and just waits.
A necessary element to prove a charge of lying in wait, what is called a special circumstance.
The special circumstance was huge. That would mean that the defendant would be subject to a sentence of life without parole.
At the end of this case, people are going to ask you to come back with the verdict of guilty as to the residential burglary, the murder of Amy Harwick, and the special circumstance of laying in wait during the commission of this one. Thank you. All right, thank you, Counsel. Mr. Franzel.
Pershouse was represented by Evan Franzel from the County Public Defender's Office.
The ultimate question that you will be asked to answer is what Garrett Pershouse intended to do when he broke into her house on the 14th of February in 2020. The evidence will show that he was reacting from within his fog of depression, and that he was going to talk to her. That his only intention that night was to speak to her. As Mr. Avila said in his opening argument, there is evidence that Mr. Pershouse possessed a syringe, brought it from his house, and brought it to Ms. Harwick's house. One reasonable inference of him bringing the syringe to her house and inside of the house is that he intended to kill her. Another reasonable inference is that he brought it intending to kill himself. You're also going to see in this trial this photograph, a photo shoot she did where she's posing here on the balcony. She had a certain comfort level with the balcony railing. One likely scenario for how Ms. Harwick came to rest where she did in the patio is that she comes home, encounters Mr. Pershouse. In a panic, she runs through her bedroom to her balcony, climbs up and over the railing, attempts to lower herself or climb down, and is unsuccessful and falls.
And the defense lawyer said their expert would testify using a recreation with mannequin dummies how that could have happened.
We'll explain how one of the likely scenarios is that she was gripping the balcony railing with either 1 or 2 feet, using the awning to brace her weight, and fell from that position. The evidence will show that, yes, Garrett Pershouse was waiting in her home. He broke into her home. Had he not been there, she wouldn't have died that night. That is not in dispute. He set a chain of actions into motion that led to her death. But the evidence will show that he never intended on killing her. But the evidence will show that he is not guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. And that he is not guilty of the special circumstance of lying in wait. Thank you.
What seemed to be a constant theme in the defense's case is a lot of shifting blame. Shifting blame from himself to Amy, and we saw that constantly throughout the trial.
You recall Dr. Hernando Chavez?
Dr. Chavez had been with Amy at the red carpet event where she ran into Gareth Pershouse.
As I was walking towards them, the only words I heard was, "You ruined my life, you bitch."
We have seen what his demeanor was
What do you think? You ruined my life. It was hostile and angry and elevated. She told me that she was scared, that she had long felt fear regarding this ex.
On cross-examination, Hershaus's lawyer sought to play down what had happened.
Would it be correct to say that you did not hear Mr. Hershaus make a verbal threat of violence towards Ms. Harwick? Is that a correct statement?
I consider the use of the word bitch a verbally threatening statement. So no.
People call Michael Herman to the stand.
Herman was Amy's roommate who called police after hearing her scream.
Dude, I heard screaming. I don't know that.
Could you tell what she was screaming?
It was just blood curdling, just screams. Like, yeah. I hear what sounded like two people hitting the floor, like somebody taking somebody else down.
So when you hear that sound of, it sounds like someone was taken down, do you hear screaming at the same time?
That's around the time I hear it get muffled.
What does that mean around that time it gets muffled?
It sounded like her mouth was being covered.
And why would you say that?
Okay.
So that's how it sounded to you?
Yeah.
As if someone was covering her mouth?
Yes.
Do you ever yell anything else to either Amy or the person or whoever's up there with her?
Hey, mother.
Okay, you yell it the same way you yelled it that morning?
Probably not, but I can try.
Go ahead.
Yell it. Hey, mother.
What did you believe would happen if you said that?
I thought it would distract him, or the person from her.
Why didn't you go out there and help Amy?
I really was worried that if both of us were going to end up dead and that nobody would know.
After Amy was taken away by the paramedics that day, did you ever see her again?
No.
I have nothing for you.
The prosecution used a series of witnesses, the lead detective, the DNA expert, and the medical examiner to build its case that when Amy Harwick fell to her death, it was no accident, as the defense had suggested.
So we had to counter that to show that his intent was not just to go there to go talk to her. His intent was to go there to kill her.
Now, would you say that strangulation was a contributing factor to the decedent's cause of death?
Yes, that's how I listed as exactly as you stated, contributing factor, evidence of manual strangulation. The evidence that she was in some kind of a fight, that she has injuries of her hands, defensive and offensive or assaultive type injuries. But most significantly, she had those hemorrhages in those muscles on her neck. And those are consistent with manual strangulation.
People call Robert Koshland to the stand.
The prosecution closed out its case with one of Amy's closest friends.
Do you recognize who's depicted on that photo?
Yes.
And who is that?
That is Amy Harwick.
And what was Amy Harwick to you back in 2020?
Amy was my best friend.
Did she indicate to you whether she was scared of Garrett first?
Yes.
What did she tell you that regard?
She said to me that if anything happens to me, it would be Garrett.
Did you go into her Gmail account and did you find anything?
Yes. I found an email that she had written to herself regarding the incident at the Exodus course.
Is this what you read on the email? Tonight I felt very scared.
Prosecutor Victor Avila began to read the entire email for some 2 minutes.
He was breathing heavily, flailing his arms around. He was sobbing. His head was in his hands. He told me that no matter what he did, he couldn't stop obsessing over me. I was very scared. He told me that Kira, I'm sorry, I'm going to object this.
It's okay. The court's going to grant it. That is the text that you saw.
That is the email I saw.
Okay.
In murder trials, you often don't get to know the victim's state of mind. In this instance, it's almost like she did testify. Really, just how scared she was of the defendant after her encounter with him that night.
The prosecution wrapped up its case without calling her former fiancé, Drew Carey.
He was on our witness list, but we definitely wanted to keep the attention and the focus of the jurors on Amy and the actual murder itself. We didn't want there to be distraction of the evidence with Amy's past.
Prosecutors now prepared for the possible testimony of Gareth Pursehouse and the experts the defense said would show it was possible Amy fell and was not thrown from her balcony.
We're continuing our coverage in California.
We're going to pivot to a trial now out of Los Angeles where a photographer stands accused
of murdering his ex-girlfriend, Amy Harwick.
The trial was being televised nationally, and Amy's friends and family continued to pack the courtroom, now waiting to hear the defense case.
It's difficult to know what to expect. I wasn't sure what direction they were going to go in.
And whether Pursehouse would take the stand himself after showing little emotion during the prosecution case.
He had a very stoic disposition. He looked down for what appears to be most of the trial.
Defense.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense rests.
A surprise. No Pursehouse testimony. No experts with their scenarios of how Amy fell from the balcony, as the defense had promised in its opening statement.
And that just did not hold water. It was not credible. At a minimum, her body was debilitated to the point that she's not opening doors. She's not climbing over a 3.5-foot railing to try to escape him.
Okay, there it is. Both sides have decided to rest at this point. I know you may be saying, well, why didn't you make us come in today? We didn't know what was going to happen, so this is where we're at. Both sides have rested.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Amy Harwick, but she was up against an opponent, a man who knew that he was much bigger than her, knew he was much stronger than her. Someone that his intent was not only to harm her, but to kill her. Because he feels entitled to her. He goes out of his way to get this pure nicotine. And he picks Valentine's Day. Why did he pick Valentine's Day? Well, Valentine's Day is a day where Amy, who's social, who has friends, would probably be out. The defense during the opening said, we're going to hear from Bob Ballard, who places her on these 3D stills holding on to the railing with one foot on the awning, speculating that whatever damage was in that awning, she caused it. He didn't testify. They said they were going to call him, but they didn't call him. Ladies and gentlemen, Amy Harwick lost her life. She had a life to live. She did all she could. She did everything right. Hold him accountable for all his actions. Don't minimize what he did. Don't ignore everything he did. Thank you.
Mercy Love, are you prepared to go forward?
Yes.
Okay.
This case boils down to a very simple question. Why did Gareth Pursehouse go to 2086 Mount Street on February 14th? The answer is clear. He went there because he was desperate to talk to Amy Harwick. Her death was never his goal. Her death would not alleviate his pain. He needed to talk to her. The intensity of his devotion to her was terrifying to him. We agree, Gareth Pursehouse had no business being in her home, but that doesn't mean he is guilty of first-degree murder.
The jury was out for about 2 days.
Deliberations are always the worst. You never know. You never know. I tried not to think of any compromises they may have during deliberation process.
We are on the record in the matter of People versus Gareth Pursehouse. We have all jurors present. Juror number 1, is it correct that the jury has a verdict? You can hand the verdict forms over to the bailiff, please.
It's an incredibly nerve-wracking moment.
All right, Mr. Clerk, if you read the verdicts onto the record, please.
People of the state of California versus Garrett Pershouse. Cal 1. We the jury to vote on type of action and finding opinion. Garrett Pershouse. Guilty of a crime of murder in the first degree. To further find the allegation that Gareth Pershouse intentionally killed Amy Harwick by means of lying in wait to be true. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are these your verdicts? So say you want, so say you won't. Yes. Thank you.
I might have been the closest thing to seeing any emotion on him, because it did look like there might have been a little lump in his throat. It definitely there's a look of fear on him. I think we all cried. Definitely tears all around. There's really no winners and losers. It's just varying degrees of loss.
People call for the first victim impact statement on road.
My name is Tom Harwick. I'm the forever grieving father of my dearly departed daughter, Amy. To the defendant, Amy did not deserve the fate that you forced upon her. I, Amy's family, and friends did not deserve the grief you imposed on us. I now wish that your fate will be life imprisonment without any possibility of parole. This will be justice for Amy.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry.
You said that Amy ruined your life, Gareth Pershouse. But that's not true. You managed to do that all by yourself.
There's some satisfaction that her killer will receive little comforts in his days ahead. But this is still no solace for the people that knew her and loved her. Amy and all of her magnificence is gone. For me, the scar of her loss will haunt us to our last days. Thank you.
Accordingly, it is a judgment and sentence of this court that the defendant shall be sentenced to a term of life without the possibility of parole.
Whatever love or emotion he had for her, that turned to hate. Amy Harwick's last moments at the hands of Gareth Pershouse were full of fear and violence.
It's just such a sad case. You know, Amy clearly is someone who did everything right, and she fell victim to such a brutal murder. You know, being a woman is just such a frightening experience to have someone re-enter your life almost a decade prior and kill you this way. It's incredibly, incredibly horrific.
She was dropped off at about 5:30 in the morning, and then she disappeared. Nobody has heard from her since.
Usually, not a big deal. All right, adults go missing sometimes because they just want a timeout.
She did drink. She was possibly an alcoholic.
My girlfriend, it was like a week ago, she's been missing since might be. We're trying to locate her right now.
We blew her phone up, never did get a hold of her, never got a response.
As each day went on, I got more and more concerned. Nicole and I drove anywhere we could think of in Council Bluffs looking for her. 911, what's the address for emergency?
There is a dead body on the side of the road.
So she was just dumped out there. And it's an area, honestly, where they dump trash.
That was a terrible day. Terrible day.
We received the information from the medical examiner that we have no cause of death, no manner of death. We can't charge a homicide because we can't prove a homicide occurred.
One of the family members said, well, what if we got a second opinion?
You have reached the office of Dr. Michael Bott.
They get Dr. Bott. Of all the doctors, they get probably the best in the world.
this is what he's going to tell you.
Not really the first place to put a body. No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
Do you want to say anything? Leave the jury and find the defendant.
Council Bluffs is a relatively small town. Across the river is Omaha, Nebraska.
We have a good mix of urban-suburban community.
And tucked away in a Council Bluffs strip mall is a local favorite, Sugar's.
Sugar's Diner is a small diner, bar, local clientele, good food, and at night, a pretty decent bar crowd.
A place where everybody knows everybody, and where 60-year-old Eileen Gallup had worked for some 2 years.
She was a character. That was her. Always trying to find a way to make somebody smile. She liked working at Sugar's. She got there really early in the morning to clean the place. Then she would get cleaned up and go and waitress then.
Her boyfriend, on and off boyfriend, Ivan Samuel Brammer, he went by Sam. He also worked at Sugar's. He was a dishwasher there.
She loved him, and that was how she was. Once she fell in love with someone, it didn't matter. She'd love him anyway.
He was a good grandfather. He was a good role model. He was like a father figure to me because he adopted me when I was 5.
Sam lived with his granddaughter in her apartment complex, where Eileen also stayed at times.
They would drink, they would get in arguments, and she would be kicked out. And then she would come back, and then she would be kicked out again later.
It was very toxic in a way, unstable.
She was dropped off, I think, at about 5:30 in the morning, and she did her job. She completed it, and then she was picked up by Brammer at about 8:30 in the morning.
She was supposed to be back at 2, I think, in the afternoon for her waitress shift, and that was when she never showed up.
And then she disappeared. Nobody has heard from her since. That was on the 13th of February.
We blew her phone up. I mean, I probably called her 20 times before I fell asleep that night. Never did get a hold of her, never got a response.
The next day, February 14th, Valentine's Day, Eileen again failed to show up for her shift at Sugar's.
If she missed a day, she would always reach out to the owner of the bar and let her know what was going on.
The owner, Megan, sent a message to Eileen's phone.
Megan initially thought, she's drunk, this is not like her.
Megan showed us the text from my sister. That wasn't from her. That's not how she would talk. It's not what she would do.
On the 14th, we went and filed a police report for missing persons that night.
Usually, not a big deal. All right, adults go missing sometimes because they just want a timeout.
Hey, did you find your heart at?
She did drink. She was possibly an alcoholic.
So the police basically just told us that she was an adult with no mental health issues and that she could just go off the grid if she wanted to. Didn't feel like they were taking it seriously at that point.
So as each day went on, I got more and more concerned and more worried, and I just knew that I couldn't sit back and wait for them to tell me what the outcome was.
Nicole was really the one trying to drive the train. This is something that needed to be taken seriously because this isn't just mom needs a break.
And then we had a big snowstorm.
Roads completely snow covered, visibility is under a mile, and I can verify that for you right now.
So it kind of made it hard to go out and physically look for her, but we did. Nicole and I drove anywhere we could think of in Council Bluffs looking for her, in places that she may be hanging out or friends that she may be with.
As we got deeper into it, it became very evident that there was much more to the story that we needed to find out.
And police decided to bring Sam Bremer in for questioning.
I'm the sergeant that you talked to on the phone. My name's Tim Roberts. I'm a sergeant.
Initially, they're focusing on Sam. Not even that they're really suspicious about him. They just want to get a story. And obviously, he's seen on video picking her up at 8:30 in the morning.
Sorry.
You know when I got phone with you, and you
Yeah.
said that I was the last person to see her alive.
I didn't say that.
Yep.
I didn't say that. I
Yes,
had,
you did.
yeah.
Yes, you sure did.
I said you were the last person that saw her before she went missing. So that's why it was important for us to talk.
We're not assuming bad, foul play at this point. They're just trying to track down her whereabouts.
I mean, basically, we got a crazy deal here where, Eileen is evidently is her family and everything else. She's never done this kind of thing before. She's never just, took off and gone. They all know.
What she does is she comes to me. She's moved to me 4 or 5 times. But usually when she moves in with me, she stays away from home.
She had said the last time that they broke up that she would never, ever have anything to do with him again. Not only was he physical with her, he said things very hurtful.
I mean, I met her like 2 years ago. She's a real sweet person, but she has an alcohol problem. Well, I made my mistake. I thought I could change her. Yeah, you know what I mean?
We're in a situation where we don't want to threaten him. We want him to work with us. We want to find Eileen.
So, if you could, I just need to know what went on Monday morning. What happened Monday morning with you?
She texted me.
Okay.
And wanted to know if I would come and get her. Because one of her friends supposedly was supposed to come and get her. And supposedly they ran out of gas. And I pulled up, she gets in the truck. We take off, run up to this. Can't remember the guy's name now.
He said he took her to a gentleman named Mike Brockman, who lived about 2.5 miles north of Sugar's Diner. Mike Brockman he's a patron of Sugar's Diner, a longtime patron. Eileen, one evening, mentioned that she had no place to stay. And Mike Brockman, he offered, a space in his apartment for her. That's where she was staying.
And dropped her out there. Then I left.
She felt safe with Sam, obviously, otherwise she wouldn't be calling it.
And then wasn't too long after that is when she called me. I think she was at my house knocking because this guy raped her.
Okay.
Now, but it's true.
Raped her when?
That night.
I want to say third or fourth day, I knew that it wasn't going to be a good outcome. I wanted to find her, and whether it was alive or dead, I just didn't want her out there alone anymore.
With still no sign of Eileen, Sam Bremer was brought in for a second round of questioning.
Sam, this is Detective Brannigan. He's going to sit in with me today, all right?
As Sergeant Roberts began developing more information, he started to question whether this really was a missing persons case and asked me to help him out with the case. The problem with his story is it couldn't be confirmed. Public Works has traffic cameras positioned throughout the city, and some of the video that we did locate didn't match his story at all. Like when he should have been dropping her off at Mike Brockman's residence, he was actually traveling west on Gainesville.
So if you could do me a favor and just kind of go through that timeline again.
I'm not too sure on the time.
We explained, well, we can't confirm your story that you went straight to Brockman's residence. And then he changed the story.
So, but she didn't want to go home right away. And she wanted to stop at her mom's house. I stopped at her mom's house.
She was there between 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning.
She had left her safe and her money in my apartment, right around $1,200, I think.
And she left carrying what looked like some type of suitcase. It was the safe.
Okay, so I took her home. Okay.
He says that's when he took her to Brockman's residence. He didn't. He lied. We had the picture showing him going toward Nebraska at 9:30.
We got a small little snap in here. I need to talk to you. Okay. We checked some of our cameras, and we have your truck going westbound at 9:28 a.m. going to Omaha. So you didn't go home. You went over to Omaha. Looks like. Do you remember what you did or reason or anything? Where'd you go?
I told you I went straight home. I don't remember going home.
Well, camera doesn't lie. It's your truck and it's your license plate number. And then 1 hour later, you're coming back from Omaha and you're going eastbound back, coming back into Council Bluffs. 1 hour later.
Now we're going home.
Where'd you go?
I went straight home.
Okay.
I know I wasn't that drunk.
We know that she's still in that truck. She was slumped and possibly had something over her head. I don't know if she was dead. She could have been. She could have been unconscious. We did locate video at the Burger King. He went through the drive-thru.
Hey, Chief Burger King. How may we help you today?
It's not the greatest video, but it was significant. And you could see Eileen on the passenger side, still unnatural. That tells me something happened.
Whatever story Bramer gave, and he changed his story about 4 times, it always ended up with back dropping her off at Mike Brockman's.
She got her truck. When she got her truck, she walked in front of her truck, and that's when I went straight, turned around, and came back.
Okay. However, we know he never got to Brockman's.
I mean, everything that we could verify for Mike Brockman was verified. Everything we could verify for Sam Bramer was not verified.
We knew that he was not telling us the truth. Why he was not telling us the truth, we need to determine. You have to remember that at this point, our motivation simply is to find Eileen before something tragic happens. We're still holding out hope that she is alive.
I ended up going to the apartment where he lived, and I knew that Sam knew from that minute when I asked him, "What'd you do to my mom?" And he just looked like he had seen a ghost.
One night, he came in my room, he gave me a hug and kiss saying, "I love you, don't believe everything you hear."
And then he told her he was going to see his deceased wife, Emily's grandmother.
He started to tell me how he was going to kill himself. He was going to kill himself to see my grandmother. And so I called 911 and they went out and looked for him.
43, I'm going to be out with the kickers. I will play Charles Hyde at X-Ray 81.
Hi, sir. How are you? Yeah. Is this your vehicle? Yep. Hey, can I talk to you real quick? Yeah. Do you have any weapons or anything on here? No. Okay. Hey, can you keep your hands out of your pockets? Yeah. Thank you. We were called to check your work. Could just again, I haven't patted you down, so I just don't want you to reach in your pockets for weapons or anything. But we were called to check your welfare. Okay, I think you talked to your granddaughter earlier, and she was concerned about you, some of the statements that you made to her. I'm here for you, man. Tell me what's going on. Why are you feeling the way you're feeling?
My girlfriend, it was like a week ago, me and her broke up, and she moved in with a guy, and apparently he raped her.
How did you find that out?
She told me. She texted me.
Okay.
And she's been missing since Monday. They're trying to locate her right now.
Okay. So what comments did you make to your granddaughter that would be concerning this evening?
I just told her I'm going to go and have a couple of drinks and that I love her. That's it.
Okay, did you mention something about seeing Grandma tonight? Did you mention something about seeing Grandma tonight?
No.
I would like for you to talk to somebody tonight. I would like for you to talk to a medical professional. To a medical professional.
Yeah.
About what you said to your granddaughter, which is concerning enough that there's now 3 or 4 police officers standing here talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's walk on over to the cruiser, sir. Oh, you can finish your smoking your cigarette, but like I said, we're going to go for a ride here anyway, so.
What about the rest for?
You're not under arrest, sir. Nope, this is clearly, it's just because of the statements you made. It's basically what we call a transport for medical purposes. For psychological purposes, you need an evaluation is all, okay? Now, like I said, if you refuse to go with us, then there will be an emergency committal and you'll be up there for 72 hours, all right? But like I said, if you're making statements to harm yourself, to family members,
Well, I would never do that.
well, that's not what was said.
There's probably a really good reason why he wanted to end his life, or at least was threatening to end his life. We need to find that reason, and we need to find that reason.
Sam Brammer spent 2 nights under psychiatric observation at a Council Bluffs hospital.
I had a feeling in my heart that he must have did something to her. I mean, he called me constantly, asking if there's any new news.
It threatened to put a strain on the relationship between Justin and Nicole.
I am Eileen's daughter, and this is Sam's son, and we are engaged. And being patient and understanding with me as I am telling him, listen, I think your dad's guilty. I think your dad did something.
Brammer had another run-in with police at a Walmart on the same day he was released from the hospital.
The cops asked him questions outside. He said, let me move my truck. And he got in and he took off.
I got a call from him on the run. He said he was on the run and he can't believe how fast his truck is going. It sounded like he was having the time of his life.
Did he lit up at all? Behind you where you're just that 29th Street and he was 60 miles an hour.
He called me also and said, if the cops get behind me again, I'm going to go right for a tree.
When things get crazy like that, they start speeding in excess of twice the posted speed limit and running stop signs. We're not going to continue that chase.
I'll shut it down.
He's in the wind for several days. Eventually, Brammer does call and turns himself in. This was on Friday the 24th. He had 2 warrants, one for reckless driving and one for eluding.
But Brammer only spent 1 night in the county jail after his granddaughter posted his bond on the 2 misdemeanor charges.
We don't have enough to charge him at this point. He is our number 1 suspect, and we just need to start tightening the case.
He bonds out of jail within hours, drives his truck over to a car crusher and gets the truck crushed. Gets it squashed and gone, crushed into a block.
We thought, all right, we can probably still get something out of that truck. But when we contacted them, they said it was not only crushed, but it was also shredded that same day. So at that point, we knew that evidence was gone.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
I don't really have an address. We're off the exit of Classic, Iowa, over by a public shooting area. What's going on? So we're driving down the road to go shooting or whatever, and there is a dead body on the side of the road. Male or female? It's female for sure.
She was obviously in, early to moderate stage decomposition. She was fully clothed, and in fact, she was fully clothed in the clothes that she'd been seen on all of these videos on the 13th. And so she was just dumped out there. And it's an area, honestly, where they dump trash.
It was oddly kind of a relief in a way because it told us that we knew we didn't have to wonder, but it was, of course, tragic to know that she was gone and in a horrible way and just dumped.
I was heartbroken. I couldn't speak to the detective anymore. I just lost it.
That was a terrible day. Terrible day.
At this point now, it's a death investigation, right? The body's collected and it's taken to the state medical examiner's office, and so that's what happened with Eileen.
The results came back. Cause of death, undetermined. Manner of death, undetermined. The murder case was in trouble.
Pretty well kills it. Pretty well kills it. We had to sit down at the table with, 10 or 12 of her family members and deliver the news that we couldn't file a murder charge. None of her injuries that were blunt force were sufficient to have caused death in this case.
I encouraged him to charge anyway. We, as a family, we would support that, and win or lose, at least we would try.
I will tell you how this case goes. I will charge it. The defense will move for a judgment of acquittal because we don't have a cause of death. The judge will sustain that judgment of acquittal, and the case is over, and the case is dismissed, and we'll never be able to file that case again. And so we talked to the family, told them this is what we're going to do. We're going to charge him with abuse of a corpse. That's a 10-year possible felony. And then we had theft because we knew that she had $1,200 in a safe and he had deposited $1,200 in his bank account. And so we had a felony theft charge that we could file against him. And the family was very, very upset. And ultimately, one of the family members, and they'd said, well, what if we got a second opinion?
I had no idea where to go. Who do you call for an autopsy, a second autopsy? So doing Google searches, looking up pathologists, Dr. Bodden's name popped up on my Google. We knew his name well. We used to watch his shows.
Dr. Michael Bodden
Washed up on shore. We can't tell opening up the stomach. There were fractures of the left, the right thyroid cartilage.
A former New York City medical examiner, Dr. Michael Bodden.
I said, I'm not going to call it because he's not going to answer it. And even if he does, he's not going to help us. And she says, well, I'll do it then.
You have reached the office of Dr. Michael Bodden.
And he picked up the phone and said hello. We couldn't believe it.
The family pooled their resources to hire Dr. Bodden, who made no promises.
I said, well, we just want a chance.
A few weeks later, Dr. Bodden's formal opinion, manner of death, homicide.
The key thing that turned out for us was that he saw an abrasion on her neck, and he was able to conclude that that abrasion was caused by a zipper from her jacket. He theorized that Sam had taken her jacket, twisted it like so around her neck, and that her zipper was here. And in the process of this, that zipper left an impression on her neck.
As far as I was concerned, that was enough.
We were all there every day.
I couldn't be with her when she needed me so badly with him. But I could go with her in the courtroom. And I had to do that.
Mr. Portage, you got a bed for his court? This case is about jealousy. It's about anger. It's about a man who for 2 weeks had no concern about Eileen being missing. Why? Because he already knew she was dead. He took $1,200 of her cash and her phone, hid and moved her deceased body to a remote location, dumped her in the ditch like she was a piece of trash. At the end of this case, I'm going to ask you to hold the defendant accountable for his actions. You will be firmly convinced that the state proved this case beyond a reasonable doubt. I ask you to find the defendant guilty on all charges.
The 5 W's. I remember this from 8th grade English class. Who, what, where, when, and why. Those are the questions that you need to be thinking of throughout this case. And I'm calling her alleged victim, not because I'm trying to seem blasé about it, but the fact is, we don't know how she died. It could have been an accident, it could have been another cause. So that's why I'm calling her the alleged victim, Eileen Gowan. You are never going to see any evidence of Mr. Brammer heading towards the old Mormon Ridge Road to dump that body as stated by Kinley. So when you go back into that jury room, after hearing all the evidence throughout this week, I feel confident that you'll come back with the only just verdict, that Ivan Samuel Brammer is not guilty of all charges.
The very first day, as the jurors were walking out from one of the breaks, they were walking out of the courtroom, and he looked over at me and he lit F you.
State would call Emily Brown.
You swear affirm the testimony about to be true.
Brammer's granddaughter Emily was a key witness for the prosecution against the man who had raised her as a father.
I knew I had to do it, but it was really, really difficult too. From my standpoint, he's not my father, he's not my dad, he's not anybody. He is literally a stranger to me.
Emily had accompanied her grandfather to the salvage yard, where he had his truck crushed and shredded.
Now, did you have a conversation with the defendant about what to say if law enforcement asked you about the crushing of the truck?
Yeah, he told me just to tell him I don't know where it is.
Why?
Because he didn't want them to know.
My name is Kelly Cruz.
And how are you currently employed?
I am an associate state medical examiner.
It was Dr. Cruz who had found that Eileen Gowan's cause of death and manner of death were undetermined.
So that was honestly what I believe was our biggest challenge. Are you familiar with Dr. Bodman?
I am.
You understand that he found the cause of death due to traumatic asphyxiation?
I did.
And a manner of death homicide?
Yes.
Were his findings, they're not excluded by your autopsy, are they?
No.
All right. You just don't believe, you have a different confidence level, and you're saying, I don't have an opinion that rises to that level, and he does. So is it fair to say that's your disagreement in this case?
Yeah, it's a differing medical opinion.
That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Ross? Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Cruz.
Good morning.
Did you have an opinion in the case of Eileen Gowan to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to her manner of death?
No, I did not.
Did you have an opinion as to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to Eileen Gowan's cause of death?
No, I can't determine.
And you ultimately disagree with Dr. Bodman's findings as to manner of death and cause of death, is that correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
When I have two witnesses that are, both very well qualified saying different things, that's a struggle.
State may call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Dr. Michael Bodman. How many autopsies have you performed in your career?
More than 20,000.
The prosecutor made sure the jury knew about Dr. Bodman's distinguished background as a medical examiner.
I was involved in looking into the death of Kobe Bryant, yes.
And George Floyd up in Minneapolis.
Did a second autopsy, yes.
Oh, Dr. Madden was wonderful. He's a gentleman, and he's so smart.
So, do you have an opinion as to cause of death?
Yes, I do.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion, as I expressed in my opinion letter, was traumatic asphyxia due to neck compression.
And do you have an opinion as to manner of death?
Yes.
And what is your opinion?
Homicide.
Okay. Is it your opinion that that was consistent with the injury that you see on her neck?
Yes, I think these teeth made those marks on the neck.
But the twisting of a jacket collar, would that create that same sort of double pressure, kind of full circumferential compression that could result in death?
Yes.
That's all I have for you. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. In this case, I believe it's your position that the code is somehow used to help with strangulation, is it not?
With the compression, yes.
And I know Mr. Wilbur got up and twisted the code, so would the code have to be off the person then to do that, or on?
On the person.
And they would twist, what, the back portion of it there?
No, the front portion. To twist it around, and that also would raise the pressure under the jawbone. This mark from the zippers above the Adam's apple underneath the jawbone.
Would it be something that you could do to another person while they're in a vehicle together?
Yes.
With someone like him who has such a depth of knowledge and experience, the defense really couldn't question him too much about his opinion.
Anything else? No, Your Honor. Thank you, Doctor. You are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state rests. Our theory was not that this was a planned murder. Something happened while they were in the truck together. Bramer snapped. That's why he was charged with second-degree murder, not first-degree, because I had no evidence of premeditation.
Mr. Munger, obviously, when the jury comes back, I'm going to be looking at you and having the defense present their case, whether or not your client was going to elect to testify.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Bramer, you and I have had conversations about the right to testify in a trial against you, correct? And you are electing not to testify by your own choosing?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Munger, on behalf of the defendant, do you have any evidence?
Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests.
Prosecutor Paul Forty is now delivering the state's closing argument, so let's go right into court.
Defendant dumped Eileen's body in a ditch in a remote location where not likely to be found for a while. And at the same time, the entire time that law enforcement, friends, and family are searching for his body or her body, he is lying to law enforcement. He is not helping them find her. He's doing the exact opposite. He's throwing off the scent. He's making it more difficult to find Eileen. Dr. Cruz says the body just doesn't tell him enough. Dr. Biden, on the other hand, he believes the body tells a different story. He's done over 20,000 autopsies, and he's also done hundreds of asphyxiation cases. You have two opinions. There's actually three opinions, and it's the most important one. It's yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is now the opportunity for the defense to provide you their final argument. Mr. Munger?
Now, I told you on Monday that the state was going to try to paint you or write you a story. And I asked you to pay attention to the main elements of the story. The 5 W's, as I call them. Who, what, where, why, and then how. And if the state failed to prove any one of these elements, just one, if they fail to prove it, then you must find Sam Brammer not guilty of murder in the second degree. So that brings us to Dr. Bott, obviously a renowned and well-known pathologist, very good at testifying. He was paid $8,500 a day, which he testified was a reasonable amount of money for someone like him. He was paid $17,000 to render this opinion. And do you think that Dr. Bodden would have been brought in if he had the same opinion or agreed with Dr. Cruz's opinion? But the state is trying to tell you that Eileen Gown was unconscious, unmoving in the vehicle at the Burger King drive-thru. Would it not have been nice to have heard from the Burger King employee who was in that video? He was kind of bopping around. He wasn't screaming, "Oh my goodness, there's a dead lady in my drive-thru. She's bleeding from her head. She's got bruises all over her face. She's got a tooth knocked out." No. We didn't hear any of that. And when you go back in that jury room, you have to be firmly convinced that Sam Brammer committed these crimes. Firmly convinced. Beyond a reasonable doubt. And I submit to you that you should fill out on each count that he is not guilty.
We sat down and we was all going to try and play cards. And we got one hand dealt out, and they come back and said there's a verdict.
I have Mr. Brammer and his counsel stand, please.
So all of us were present when they read the verdict.
State of Iowa versus Ivan Samuel Brammer. Count one. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ivan Samuel Brammer, guilty of murder in the second degree.
He just stood there quiet as a mouse. Didn't have any emotion, nothing.
As to count two, we, the jury, find the defendant, Ivan Samuel Brammer, guilty of abuse of a corpse. Count three, guilty of theft.
I think everybody was just like let out a sigh of relief.
I knew that the Lord wouldn't let me down.
I give all credit to the family that they reached out, and I give all credit to Dr. Bodden. Without Dr. Bodden in this case, there's no way that case goes to trial for murder.
We just felt as a family it was, the last thing that we could do for her was to try to get justice for her. And it was very gratifying when it came back guilty.
Counsel, are you ready to proceed with sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Brammer, this is your opportunity to tell the court any you wish to state with respect to sentencing. Any you wish to say?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Yeah, I've got several family members that wish to address the court, Your Honor.
There is always going to be a void in my life because my mother is no longer here, and that void can never be filled. The way you walked around the courtroom, how could you look at my family and smirk at us? Or lip words like F you? You should be ashamed of yourself. No one should have to end their life like that. I wouldn't wish that kind of death on my worst enemy, which is you. As much as people say you deserve what you did to her, I don't agree. I believe you will live for eternity in hell for what you did.
The defendant, Ivan Samuel Brammer, having been found guilty of murder in the second degree, is hereby committed to the custody of the Director of the Corrections of the State of Iowa for an indeterminate term not to exceed 50 years. As to count two, abuse of a corpse, 10 years. As to count three, theft in the second degree, 5 years. Counts 1, 2, and 3 shall be served consecutively, that is, one after another, for a total indeterminate term of 65 years. Mr. Brammer, the overall reason for this sentence concerning all three counts is the cruelty and seriousness of the crimes. You stole Eileen's life, threw away her lifeless body, and then again stole from her finances. Your senseless and cruel acts have taken a mother, a daughter, an aunt, and numerous friends. We are adjourned.
Someone like him doesn't belong in this society anymore. He's long gone.
I mean, the man's 62 now. You do the math, unless, I mean, he'd be 90 something before he's eligible for parole.
He'll never get out. And that's good.